This video will discuss how to develop a process of assessment that can be useful to the program and its faculty for greater student success. The learning expectations include how to define learning outcomes, organizing your curriculum through a matrix, defining assessment tasks through which students demonstrate qualities of learning, and putting it together in an assessment process. The most important part of assessment of student learning is defining the learning outcomes expected of a successful program completion. Defining learning also relates to each course in the curriculum, to the extent to which the learning that occurs in each course has a purpose toward the program outcomes. Clearly defined learning outcomes are the foundation of curriculum relative to the content taught in and across each course, and the activities through which students can learn. Program learning outcomes should guide the content selected in courses and how students are to demonstrate learning. Your program has already or will create student learning outcome statements. They provide students and faculty with a clear purpose for which to focus learning efforts. They provide the connection that aligns learning across the program curriculum. They provide focus for the instructional activities in each course. And they will guide the strategies used in the step of designing tasks through which students demonstrate learning. Because it is important that students will be successful in their lives beyond the university and represent the university with skill and honor, what considerations of learning are necessary to assess? The first area is knowledge. There is specific knowledge that students must recall and retain in each discipline. These are the factual components of learning that become foundational for all future decisions. We currently do a pretty good job of assessing content knowledge, but this is not the only type of knowledge that must be assessed. Other aspects of knowledge essential to student success is the understanding the context into which the factual knowledge will be applied, such as the social, cultural, and ethical context essential for the success in a complex world society. Content often has different meaning in and across multiple contexts. The knowledge often needs to be applied differently in alternative contexts. We also need to confirm that students know how to apply the knowledge in a professional context. This is the knowledge of how to apply what they have learned. With this area of knowing, it is important to recognize if a student knows about applying learning and skills used in a discipline. This does not necessarily mean that they can actually apply it. Knowledge of processes use a completely different part of the brain than does the action of application. It is important to assess if students know the process of application. And then it is also important to assess that students can actually apply the knowledge in action. And then we also need to confirm that students know what they have learned and why it is important for their future as a motivation for lifelong learning. This is called metacognition. We must assess the extent to which students know what they know, or even more importantly, is finding out what students think they know but actually do not, or what they possibly misunderstand. Another area of learning are skills and competencies necessary for student success. The assessment process requires students to demonstrate their application of knowledge authentic to the expectations beyond the classroom. These are applied assessments such as student-developed research projects, laboratory experiments, and internship experiences. It is also important not to forget process skills, such as oral and written communication skills, critical thinking, and problem solving. These essential skills and competencies cannot be assessed as knowledge. They must be assessed through doing and applying. These are essential skills that can be integrated across multiple disciplines. But it is also very important to assess the quality that students can appropriately integrate these skills within the expectations of the discipline. For example, There are specific oral communication skills that are unique in each discipline. The same can be stated for written communication or problem solving. The assessment must observe students in action to identify the quality of learning in these areas. Equally important is the development and assessment of professional dispositions. Dispositions refer to the type of graduate desired to represent your program in the profession, such as ethical decisions, leadership abilities, sensitivity to others, creativity, and teamwork. Dispositions may be some of the most important aspects of learning that can lead students to success in their future. But these are also the aspects of learning that are often not assessed very well. But they can be assessed if we observe the indicators of successful learning in action. In your assessment process, each outcome is a category that quite often in and of itself is not directly accessible as a single measurable act. They consist of multiple components, each of which can be directly demonstrated and measurable. These measurable components are the individual indicators that together demonstrate achievement of the outcome. Each of these criteria are the observable components that are measurable at multiple achievement levels. This is the data that are collected as indicators as to the extent to which students are achieving the outcomes. If achievement of outcomes need to be improved, it is essential to identify the component criteria that is challenging the students. The assessment task that scores achievement cannot effectively be designed until you confirm the criteria to be assessed. The task through which students demonstrate outcomes must be created in such a way as that the students directly demonstrate the intended learning of the discipline. The scoring device used to measure achievement must also be specifically aligned with the criteria. Once outcomes have been defined and agreed upon across faculty in your program, it is important to review the curricular plan through which students learn and develop proficiencies toward outcomes. A curriculum matrix identifies where in the curricular sequence student learning of each outcome is introduced, developed, achievement periodically benchmarked, and final competency assessed. It is essential for faculty to recognize where their courses fit into students' sequence of development. Appropriate use of the curriculum matrix should guide faculty in designing teaching plans that prepare students to successfully demonstrate learning outcomes. A curriculum matrix identifies each course in the curriculum and identifies each outcome. Then the matrix identifies where each outcome is introduced in the curriculum of courses and where the student learning is developed. This helps faculty to recognize the learning that's necessary as a result of involvement in their course and the former level that should be expected their students who enter their course. It also identifies for the program where the students are expected to demonstrate the final achievement level. Many programs assess all outcomes consistently as the curriculum progresses annually, providing longitudinal data for student achievement. Even before designing what is taught in classes, the program should clearly define what is to be assessed and how students are expected to demonstrate learning. This is an important step, which will be the foundation for the entire assessment structure. What tasks can be used for students to demonstrate learning? Some examples include exams of knowledge, observation of applied skills, essays testing communication skills and attainment of knowledge, internships demonstrating applications of skills in the workplace, portfolios as a collection of artifacts, journaling, self-reflections of learning, and self and peer evaluations exposing critical thinking and metacognitive skills. Outcomes are comprised of multiple components assessed criteria through which students demonstrate the qualities of learning. Considering that outcomes are comprised of multiple assessable criteria, your assessment process must be designed to identify the qualities of learning that together demonstrate achievement of each outcome. But your assessment process should also be designed to assess the quality of learning for each component criterion, because identifying learning deficiencies in the specific component is what allows the assessment process to guide improvements. In your assessment structure, it is essential to define what it means to fully meet the expectations of the outcome for your program and what is unacceptable. In between those levels is a level of achievement that is acceptable but not fully meeting the expectations of the outcome for your program. Beyond meeting your expectations, there are sometimes those that exceed the expectations of the program, so that category provides information on that group of students. The curricular design process we are describing is often called backward design. Instead of choosing the content to teach, then teaching the content, then testing the content that was taught, we first identify the learning outcome as a result of teaching. Backward design begins with deciding what is to be learned. These learning outcomes are the basis for all decisions in the instructional process. Then the curricular sequence defines when and what needs to be taught across the learning experience. Additionally, the assessment tasks should be defined before instruction and content is determined. In backward design, it is important to define how you expect students to demonstrate the learning outcomes. And then with this information, the professor plans instruction and the content appropriate so that students can develop the knowledge and skills so to apply the learning as intended. Then you teach and identify achievement through planned assessment activities. If designed to do so, students can demonstrate developmental learning as they participate in the instructional activities throughout our teaching. Resulting data from assessment measurements is an important component for teaching because it identifies successful learning as well as deficiencies that need to be addressed for students to fully attain the desired outcome. The fundamental structure of an assessment process looks something like this. It begins with defining what students are to know and do as a result of teaching. Then gathering evidence of learning to identify the extent and the quality to which learning occurs in respect to and beyond the learning outcomes. One of the most important components of this cycle is interpreting the meaning of the evidence collected so that it can be used to guide teaching, learning, curriculum, and the continuation of the assessment process.